the focus in the news has been almost entirely on Dominic Cummings. He's on the front page of virtually every newspaper today. He's been leading every broadcast after that extraordinary hour-long press conference in the Rose Garden at number 10. Now, I've taken a view over the last few days that I don't think that he should remain in his job. I've had a lot of grief for this online, on social media. I'm never entirely convinced social media is completely representative of the world, or indeed of my talk radio listeners. But Dominic Cummings yesterday explained a lot of things, and he did deny some of the key accusations against him, a second trip to Durham after he'd returned to work in London being key among them. But absolutely crucially, he did admit to 3 clear breaches of the lockdown rules. Bearing in mind, we are talking about late March, early April. He said that he went back into number 10 after he knew his wife was ill with what was likely to be coronavirus symptoms. He went back to work, thereby risking infecting other people carrying that virus. His drive to Durham was clearly in breach of the lockdown rules, and certainly the 30-mile drive to Barnard Castle to test his eyesight was certainly in breach of the rules. And this happened to be on his wife's birthday, but really, he said, was about testing his eyesight. I don't understand why anyone would think they had to drive 260 miles to get some access to childcare. I don't understand why somebody who wasn't ill himself would suddenly be convinced that both he and his wife would be so totally and utterly incapacitated they couldn't possibly care for their 4-year-old child. I don't understand why you would take your 4-year-old child with you while you were worried about your eyesight and worried about being safe to drive on a 30-mile trip, 60 mile there and back to Barnard Castle. I don't believe that his circumstances were exceptional, certainly no more exceptional than anyone who had a child, a single parent or 2 parents, when he himself was not ill when he decided to drive to up to Durham to his parents' home. I don't understand why, if they thought he did nothing wrong, why he didn't get formal permission to do this in advance, or why he didn't, for instance, expect that his wife, when she wrote an article for the Spectator magazine as a journalist there, which wrote a very lengthy article all about the experience of coronavirus, at no point mentioning this incredibly epic trip to Durham and not being in their own home. In fact, she implied all along they had been in London. I simply do not believe it. And I also don't believe this fear that his family's safety was at risk if he was on lockdown. No one was in the street at that time. Late March, early April, we were in complete lockdown. No one was in the street. I simply don't accept all of his arguments. I would have liked to hear an apology. We've heard the explanation. I think it's for the British people to decide whether or not they still have faith in Dominic Cummings, and in particular in the Prime Minister and his judgment in terms of keeping Dominic Cummings as his advisor. And no, I am not media scum, and no, I do not take part in a witch hunt against this man. I'll tell you why I feel this way. I'm someone who thinks that Dom Cummings is probably the best thing that's happened to this country in a long time. I love the fact he helped deliver Brexit as leader of that the man who put the Vote Leave campaign effectively to the British people. I love that he helped deliver a government that was going to deliver Brexit and got rid of the possibility of a Corbyn government. I'm grateful to him. I love what he did with the schools when he worked for Michael Gove as Education Secretary. I love all his plans to shake up Whitehall and end this establishment Ramona bubble that basically rules us. You will not find a bigger fan of Dominic Cummings than in me. But I also am a really big fan of people not being hypocrites. I'm a really big fan of the most important people, the most powerful people, the elite, the people at the top, being seen to obey the law. I don't like rules that are one rule for you and one rule for me. I think he's undermined the government's health message, crucially. I think if we can all just interpret every single rule as we want, then we don't have a rule. And I really think that if he had an ounce of I suppose, integrity on this issue, I think he would resign. I don't think it's very easy for the Prime Minister to sack him, but I think he should resign his post. And I'm sorry, I'm still going to stick by that, because I don't want hypocrites ever at the top of government.